I never expected my night to take such a turn. It started with a simple call, one I almost ignored. But when I saw the name flash on my screen, Richard, I hesitated. He was my friend's father, a man I had always known to be charming yet distant. We hadn't spoken in years, so why now? His voice held an edge of exhaustion. He had just finalized his divorce and was passing through town. He didn't ask outright, but I could hear it in his voice. He needed a place to stay. I should have said no. My husband was out of town and it felt inappropriate. But loneliness does strange things to people. Before I knew it, I was saying, "You can stay the night." When Richard arrived, he looked different. Older, sure, but in a way that made him more compelling. There was a sadness in his eyes that made me want to listen, to understand. We sat in the living room, talking over a bottle of wine. He told me about the divorce, about how everything had crumbled despite years of effort. I found myself opening up too. I talked about my marriage, how routine had replaced passion, how my husband and I had become distant strangers sharing a house. I wasn't sure why I was telling him this. Maybe because he was listening in a way my husband never did. His eyes never left mine. "You deserve more," he said, and I felt something shift inside me. The night stretched on, and our conversation deepened. He spoke about his regrets, the way love fades when taken for granted. And every word hit too close to home. At some point I realized how close we were sitting. His knee brushed mine and I didn't move away. The air between us changed, charged, heavier. I saw the way his gaze lingered, how his breathing had slowed. Then my phone buzzed. My husband's name on the screen. A reminder of reality. I hesitated before answering, my voice coming out steadier than I expected. He was just checking in, telling me he'd be back in 2 days. I nodded along, gave the usual responses, but my mind was elsewhere. When I hung up, Richard was watching me. I expected guilt to settle in, but it didn't. Instead, there was something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. The silence between us felt different now. I should have moved away, created distance, but I didn't. Neither did he. Instead, Richard leaned back, studying me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. "You ever think about what you're missing?" he asked. I swallowed, unsure how to answer. Of course I had thought about it. The slow drift in my marriage wasn't sudden. It had been happening for years. Conversations had turned into routine exchanges, intimacy into obligation. I had told myself it was normal, that this was just what love became after time. But sitting here with Richard looking at me like that, I wasn't so sure. I forced a laugh, trying to steer the conversation somewhere safer. "We all make compromises, right?" His expression didn't change. "Compromises, sure. But does it ever feel like you've compromised too much?" I felt exposed, like he had pulled something from inside me I wasn't ready to admit. I reached for my wine, needing something to ground me, but my hands weren't as steady as I wanted them to be. Richard shifted slightly, his arm brushing against mine as he reached for his glass. He didn't pull away. I could feel the warmth of his skin, the quiet confidence in his presence. "This is dangerous," I murmured, more to myself than him. His lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Only if you want it to be." I exhaled slowly, my heartbeat loud in my ears. The worst part. I did want it to be. I looked away, but he didn't stop watching me. He wasn't pushing, wasn't forcing anything, but he didn't have to. The space between us was filled with things unspoken, words we both knew but didn't say. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. The bottle emptied, and the tension only grew. Every small movement, every glance felt heavier. Then his fingers grazed my wrist, a touch so light I might have imagined it. But I didn't pull away. I should have. I should have reminded myself of the ring on my finger, the vows I had made. But I didn't. 'Cause for the first time in years I felt seen. I felt wanted. And I wasn't sure I was strong enough to walk away from that. I told myself I would go to bed. That putting distance between us would erase whatever had been building all night. But sleep never came. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my body tense, my mind racing. I could still feel the weight of his gaze, the warmth of his touch lingering on my skin. At some point I got up. Maybe it was an excuse, water, fresh air, anything to shake this feeling. But when I stepped into the dimly lit living room, he was already there. Standing near the window, a cigarette between his fingers, lost in thought. He turned at the sound of my footsteps. Couldn't sleep. I shook my head. Neither of us moved. The space between us was shrinking, and I wasn't sure who was closing the distance. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. His eyes searched mine. Maybe you do. I hated how right he was. I had known the moment I opened that door, maybe even before then. This wasn't about impulse. It was something deeper, something I had been starving for. I felt him before he touched me, the warmth radiating from his body, the way his breath mixed with mine. When his fingers brushed my cheek, my resolve shattered. The first kiss was hesitant, as if we were both testing the boundaries of what we had already decided. Then hesitation gave way to something else, something desperate, something inevitable. His hands traced the curve of my back, pulling me closer. My body responded before my mind could catch up, years of restraint breaking in an instant. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew there was no undoing this. I knew the weight of what I was risking, what I was throwing away. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. The weight of reality settled in before I even opened my eyes. I wasn't alone. The air felt different, heavy with the unspoken. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake him. My mind raced through everything that had led to this moment. The conversation, the stolen glances, the touch that had unraveled everything I thought I had under control. I reached for my phone out of habit. A missed call from my husband. My stomach twisted. I couldn't ignore what I had done, but I wasn't ready to face it either. Richard stirred beside me, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. He wasn't apologetic. He wasn't regretful. If anything, he looked like he understood something I didn't. "You're thinking too much," he said. I let out a breath, shaking my head. "I have to." He sat up, his gaze steady. Was it a mistake? I didn't have an answer. If I said yes, I'd be lying. If I said no, I'd be admitting to something I wasn't ready to accept. I stood, wrapping the sheet around me like it could shield me from the truth. "You should go." He nodded, as if he had expected this. There was no argument, no desperate plea. Just quiet acceptance. He got dressed, moving with a calmness that irritated me. Maybe because I wanted him to fight this, to give me a reason to justify it. When he reached the door, he paused. "You don't have to pretend this didn't mean something." I looked away. "It can't." He didn't push. He simply gave me one last look before stepping out, leaving behind a silence that felt deafening. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, the weight of my choices pressing down on me. I had thought letting him in was the hardest part. I was wrong. It was letting him go,